Spoken word, poetry and rap are an art form. And my next guest, Simon Mole, has been learning his craft for many years and is now a children's educator. He's a National Poetry Day ambassador and an acclaimed children's poet. He's performed on the same stage as John Cooper-Clarke, Tempest, and Simon Armitage. And his next gig is a poetry picnic at Alexandra Palace. So let's find out more. Simon, welcome to Tea Time with me, Ali Monja. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks. Actually, I today have revealed online the front cover of my new book for the very first time. So it's an exciting day, in fact, yes.
Fantastic. And this is your second book, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It is called I Love My Bike. And yeah, it's been illustrated by Sam Usher, who is, my two kids are 3 and 6, and they are not kind of reassuringly hard to impress with like work stuff. But when I told them that he had done the pictures of it, they were both like, wow, quite visibly starstruck. They've just got a couple of books that he's either written or illustrated. So I was like, yeah, this next thing I'm doing, he's doing the pictures for it. So that was a really nice moment. Like I got the advanced copy through. And I was surprised at how different it actually feels. Like I'd seen, you see something on the screen, and then when you see it actually as an actual book, it was just, I was quite moved by having the physical object, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so it's a really good day, actually. Yeah.
Fantastic. So is this book something that you came up with during lockdown?
Oh no, it's been in the makings for a while. We did put the finishing touches to it during lockdown, and that really did reaffirm for me the importance of like some of the central themes of it, and also kind of what a lifeline a bike can be off, particularly in lockdown, where countless families got that escapism in that really tough and challenging time through being outdoors and being together a bit more. And like I read this crazy thing about like bike sales increasing over 60% or something during lockdown. Like everyone was just desperate to get a bike. And so I kind of, when we were just finishing off, it was in my mind that something that hopefully like a lot of families could enjoy reading together, but also maybe would be inspired to be like, I've had a look at the book, but now I want to get outside and get active and see the world. Do you know what I mean? I just think a bike makes just the kind of standard journey feel a bit more like an adventure. Do you know what I mean? Even just going around a corner shop or something, especially when you're a small child, those first few times when you are learning to ride a bike and overcoming the challenges. Yeah, for sure. Like I remember with my boy, he was just like, because he had a balance bike first, the ones without pedals. And when you first showed him with pedals, like he could balance great, but he was just so annoyed that these pedals were there. Like, and just to see, it's going to be worth it though. Do you know what I mean? So it's really nice as a parent to see them going through, overcoming those challenges and sticking with something to kind of accomplish something for the first time. Because I guess it must just feel pretty mad. Like you see.
Well, it's like driving a car, isn't it? When they get to teenagers. I mean, mine are teenagers and 20s now. But I mean, that first initial moment is they're in control of their own wheels. And it's really quite an exciting time, isn't it, to be able to.
Yeah, it increases the size of the world, doesn't it? Well, that they can maybe access and be a part of. Like, it's obviously the internet has changed that a bit, hasn't it? You feel like the world is accessible in a different way, maybe to like when I was growing up. But really remember those, first times mates like had a car that we could travel further, or like, just ride into the other side of Brighton where I grew up. You just feel like, well, I can get anywhere in this city. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to like ask for a lift or have bus fare or like.
No, you're out on the road, aren't you? So you first started writing this book, well, before lockdown, as you said.
Yeah.
So is it, short poems, or how does it go?
It's actually, it's a picture book. It's just kind of like a story about a little girl that learns to ride a bike for the first time, basically, but with the help of her dad. And so she just kind of, it's just you. It's, I think, what I hope is a good way. It's very simple. It's just like one kind of that experience distilled into one bike ride. I feel like it is poetry, although it is a picture book text as well. Do you know what I mean? So it opens with like, I love my bike. There's a flame on the frame and a bell on the bars, and it's red, so it's fast. I love my bike. You know what I mean? So you could imagine it's got like a maybe like lyrical refrain kind of feel to certain sections of it. And I think that's what I love about writing for and with children in general. Like initially I thought, oh, would it have to be really simple so that they can follow it? But actually they do seem to enjoy that almost consciously poetic language, being playful with words, either like alliteration or rhyme or whatever it is from a really young age. Minds are kind of hardwired to enjoy predicting what sounds might come next. Do you know what I mean? And I think, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. It is. And as you said, it's your second book, isn't it? Because your first book was, a couple of years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was called Kites. That's maybe for a slightly older, not necessarily. I think it's tricky with picture books. It's hard to know like exactly what age, because it's also for a grown up usually to read aloud to a child. And I think that's partly what's so exciting, I think, about picture books for me, is that it's one of those areas where obviously not everyone's lucky enough to have lots of books at home. I don't mean that, but in terms of like, it seems like it's quite a mainstream art form. Do you know what I mean? Like a bedtime book is like a familiar routine in a lot of households.
Oh gosh.
And like making a picture book is the potential audience of families to read that just is quite wide compared to a lot of other kind of books that you could write. And that just feels like a really exciting opportunity. And I love the idea that there might be layers in it. So we read this fantastic book the other week called Look Up. It's a picture book. I think it's by Nathan Bryan, and that's someone's done drawings for it. Like, it's absolutely great. So my 3-year-old loved it, like straight away. I think it's because it's got this really strong first person speaker, like a little girl kind of narrating her own story. But then my 6-year-old really liked it as well, because there were some levels that he was enjoying. And then I was really liking it. Do you know what I mean? On kind of, it's like when you watch those family films, the best ones, where like you're genuinely into it as a grown-up as well. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the kind of poetry that I want to make, and the kind of shows that I want to make, where you take your children and you think, this is going to be fun for them, but also I'm going to enjoy this as well. Like, I'm going to be creatively engaged or inspired or entertained, or just have a bit of a giggle as well, like with them, but also as a grown-up, you can kind of feel like you've got something out of it as well, beyond just being able to chill out. I don't know, you know, it's like as a parent, sometimes you go to stuff and you're like, all right, well, I sit here and message my mates for a bit, and like the kids are happy, they're enjoying it, this is cool.
But you're not connecting. No, I know what you mean.
It's like sometimes, isn't it? Just to be, and do you know what? Sometimes kids love that stuff the most. Like, I'm not judging the quality of any of those things. Do you know what I mean? If they're happy and they genuinely love going to see something, then that's brilliant for like different reasons. But it is nice to sometimes go and feel like you're all connecting with something in your own ways.
Yes, I think you're right. I think, you know, it is the situation. Well, it's like anything to do with arts and culture. I mean, if you are into arts and culture, you can discuss it, can't you, as a family? So, I mean, that's effectively what a good family film or a good family book does, doesn't it? It really sort of goes across all ages, because I honestly do believe that, you know, the best family films and best family books are the ones that, you know, still capture the imagination of the child that's inside you. So yeah, I think that's the key point, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like that's what we're trying to do with these poetry picnic events that we're running as well, like which I do with the musician, singer, storyteller Gecko. Like,
when did you do the first one?
Oh, to be honest, we've actually so far we've only done online ones, because obviously of not being. We had one which was supposed to happen at the Albany like in autumn, then that turned to an online only one. And then we've done some for Hertfordshire libraries, which have been online in their holidays. So yeah, we haven't done like, obviously they are real life, but do you know what I mean? What's in person? Do you know what I mean? We haven't done an in-person one yet, but we've got one coming up. In like start of June is going to be at Alexandra Palace, so that'll be outside. So that's cool. You could hopefully at this point you feel reasonably confident that something outside at that point would be able to take place. Do you know what I mean?
We do, and it should be. We do seem to be on the right roadmap track at the moment, don't we? In terms of things we're opening back up again. So I would imagine by June the 6th, it will be able to go ahead. And it's all outside, is it, at the Ali Pally?
Yeah, they've got like a really nice outdoor bit. That just doesn't do it justice. It's not like on the main terrace. It's what I'm trying to say. But it's a really, really nice outdoor area which will set up like so when families arrive, they'll head over to their kind of designated blanket area and like make themselves at home, get treated to a performance from a kind of, a range of professional artists, me, Gecko, some of our friends. And then what I think is interesting and exciting for me about the event is that it's very much about families being creative themselves. So we play some fun and like quite silly games for everyone to get to know each other and warm up our kind of poetry powers a little bit. And then people get supported to kind of write a poem either on their own or in their kind of family themes on their blankets. And then once that's happened, any of them that want to can share what they've written like on the same stage as the professionals share their work, because we'll book some guest artists each time. They'll probably write along with the workshop section. So like as well as doing a poem that they know at the start, you'll get a professional sharing something that they've just written in the last 15, 20 minutes at the same time as the kids were writing something. Do you know what I mean? So it's opening up that process and kind of reminding or letting kids know that, even professional poets have to redraft and edit, and their finished work doesn't just kind of land in a book just straight away. Do you know what I mean? And kind of that's part of the fun of it, isn't it? That sometimes you come up with some silly stuff to get to something that you do actually use, and allowing the idea that if you say yes to your own ideas, just following that through. We talk to them about having like a creator and an editor. And so like at the start of the process, you'd kind of get rid of your editor and you're just coming up with absolutely anything. And that can be so much fun once you get into that flow,
No, that sounds like a really good thing as well. As you said, it's another true family event that will bring people together as well. I mean, you said that you haven't actually done one of these live yet, so that would be really exciting for you to do it. And, what if you discover somebody who's actually got a talent?
The next big thing, who knows? Well, no, I think to be honest, we already have in some ways. Some of the children that are going to be coming along, are like who I think I'm pretty sure will be coming along anyway. Like I've said that they will, like have been coming to some online writing workshops that I've been running since the first lockdown. So I started to offer them for free in the first lockdown. To begin with, they were like once a week, I think, and that was quite a heavy going for all of us. So we kind of like spread them out a little bit. But like some of these young poets, they are young poets now, definitely. I've been coming, at least kind of once or twice a month, like since then, which is like basically almost a year now. Do you know what I mean? So the amount of time that they've been writing, I think they kind of see themselves as poets as well in a way that's maybe that stays with them more than just when they're putting pen to paper, if that makes sense. Like the way that they look at the world and the way that they see themselves. And yeah, so some of them, like I've literally never met in person. I've only seen on the screen, and they've been coming to these writing workshops all that time. But I think they're in London or around London, so they might be able to come actually up, and me and Gecko will be able to meet them face to face for the first time, which would be pretty exciting, I think. Yeah.
No, that will be really exciting as well, especially as you said, after lockdown and everything else, because you really had initially started all this before we went into, we were in the middle of a global pandemic, I suppose, really.
Yeah, well, we had another show that we were all set for like a national tour of, which was called Mole and Gecko, the show, which we had toured already, but we had like a pretty good libraries tour set up for it. And yeah, just like so many other things, it couldn't happen in the end. You know what I mean? But then this project of the online workshops has ended up being one of the most like inspiring things I think I've ever done in my whole time as a writer and an educator. Do you know what I mean? That it's been something really quite different. That it's hard to explain it. Because they're in their homes, like it feels like there's a different connection somehow. Yeah, and just you can. I just love the idea that like people would see poetry or being creative with words as something that might be part of their day-to-day life. I don't mean necessarily all just sitting and reading a poem or like writing a poem every day or something, but the idea of being playful with words and appreciating the poetry that is around us in lots of different ways, be that picture books or a funny place name or a road sign or like just a little rhyme that a kid comes up with on the way up to the bath or something. Do you know what I mean? Just kind of embedding that creativity and that love of words, and to see that happening in like different households, some of whom I knew before and some I like didn't know at all, was just a real privilege. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I mean, let's just sort of wind the clock back a little bit, Simon. When did you first become a poet?
It kind of depends how you define it, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's really interesting. I think I always used to love like playing with words myself. I was in Brighton Youth Theatre. I remember I used to absolutely love that when I was because like I said, I grew up in Brighton, so I was like a bit of a hippie kid with like Kurt Cobain kind of curtains and a skateboard. My mum used to raise me on a diet of lentils and chickpeas and stuff, and then I kind of discovered almost by accident that I could rap and that I really liked rapping, and got into that. And then when I was at uni, I ended up being I was lucky to find this really great band, like a big 10-piece thing with like a brass section and stuff that had a really amazing soul singer, and I used to do some stuff with them. And so maybe at the time I probably wouldn't have said I was a poet, but thinking about how I would define poetry now, I think writing lyrics or writing text for performance, do you know what I mean? Like it broadly could be poetry, but in terms of like really trying to sit down and write what I considered to be a poem, maybe like a bit later than that, still like a good 10 years ago or something, do you know what I mean? But kind of, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know whether it really gets called spoken word now. For a while it got called performance poetry, for a while it got called spoken word, but essentially like poetry that people write to perform, do you know what I mean? And I've really enjoyed writing to perform, probably more than writing for page. I'm not quite sure why, but there's just something about different levels of meaning that you can bring to work when you speak it. Do you know what I mean? And
yes,
that's something that I'd always enjoyed doing. So I was kind of crafting little, and also maybe it just fitted the different stuff that I've been into. Like I said, I was into rapping, I've been doing that. I was into theatre and performance, and I've been doing that. And so like spoken word or performing poetry in some way, you could jump from like a character-based thing with everyday conversational language into a rap in the same piece of work, if you see what I mean. And I quite enjoyed that, being able to contrast those different styles within one piece. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're now the National Poetry Ambassador, aren't you? So
one of, yeah, I tell you, National Poetry Day. I mean, I'd love to be like, yes, I am the National Poet. No, I'm a National Poetry Day ambassador. People, yeah, to be honest, like that is kind of mad. Like there's a load of people that are doing that who are like genuinely like poets that I look up to and have looked up to for.
Well, people like, because you've been on the same stage as people like Simon Armitage, haven't you? So
yeah, probably long before I was ready to be in that one, to be honest. Some of them, like, you know, I don't know how it is with you with writing biogs for stuff. Some of them is a bit like John Cooper-Clarke. Yeah, I was on the same stage in the same day as him at a festival, so I'll put it in the bio, but it wasn't like just me and him, do you know what I mean? Whereas the Simon Armitage one was actual like a proper support slot for him at a theatre, where like someone had been like, yeah, I'd really like to book you to go on before Simon Armitage. And like, it wasn't amazing. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I wasn't like mad into poetry when I was a teenager particularly, but like we studied his stuff at school and I do remember liking it. And yeah, looking back, I probably wouldn't have booked me. Like it went all right, do you know what I mean? But I think yeah, it's weird, isn't it? How and when opportunities come up. Like, I'd love to have a go at doing that gig again now. Do you know what I mean? But then you kind of think, but but maybe that was why it was interesting. The idea of having someone who was pretty young and new to it, just doing a few bits at the start as a way to kind of I could see why they would do that. But no, that was amazing. And he was just so nice as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, proper, like, friendly and supportive and interested and stuff. Like, I just kind of think, well, often seems to be the case, I think, with, like Michael Rosen, just a total legend as well, and John
Really?
Hegley, people like that are just trying to bring through new younger people that write, and being really supportive of them. Like, I did a really cool community event at the Albany in Deptford, because I used to live around the corner from there. I used to do a lot of stuff. That's a great theatre for community stuff. And we used to do this thing called Meet Me at the Albany, which is like a creative day club for over 60s that like live in around the area. And we did an event where it was like some of those guys that we've been working with and some younger poets, and we got John Hegley to come down as well. I don't know, do you know what I mean? Some people you'd approach about something like that, which is maybe a bit more out there, not like a big gig. It's like, come to a community event that we're doing, which is about dialogue between different generations and stuff. And he was just so into it, and just came and was just a really great part of it. And yeah, it's just nice to think that you can reach out to people that are like a bit bigger than you and ask them something, see if they might be interested in it.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, that's how you learn, isn't it? I think as well, with people that have gone before, because I suppose as an artist, because that's what you are really, you're always developing, aren't you?
Yeah, I think and especially if you're someone that wants to support other people's creativity, like, it's so important. Find ways to keep supporting your own, do you know what I mean? And keep developing that, not feeling like, oh, okay, because I'm doing something a bit like teaching with these guys, I'm kind of finished, I know how to do my thing, do you know what I mean? Obviously, there's the cliche of like, you learn from your students as well, which of course you do, but I also mean like just trying to find ways to like nourish and grow your own creative development at the same time as working with other people.
Which sounds amazing. It really, really does. So can you remember what your very first performance was?
Not really, to be totally honest. I like, what professionally, or just
Yeah,
what?
professionally, when you actually, you could actually sort of make money out of it as well. It must have been quite a sort of.
Yeah, I remember I did. There's a great organisation called Apples and Snakes, and they're one of the leading poetry organisations in the UK. And I've been doing a few kind of gigs here and there, and then I remember they booked me to do something, and that was a really, really big deal. Like, for me, I don't mean it was a big deal anyway beyond that, but like my name was on the flyer, and other people on it were people I'd read their books or seen their videos and thought, wow, I really like those guys. Do you know what I mean? So to get booked for that was a really big deal. And I know that as an organization, like, they do that for a lot of poets. Do you know what I mean? Like, part of their remit is about supporting and bringing through that new talent and giving those people opportunities to kind of just to be heard for the first time on like a genuine platform. And
so, I mean, you're all really about also, as you said, encouraging younger people to, find their poetic voice, would you say?
yeah. And I think once they've found it, to find a platform, like a genuine platform, like I was saying, like, rather than, that's the thing about Poetry Picnic. When we're doing Alexandra Palace, like, we're doing a few workshops in the half term, in the week before, with some young people. And sometimes on a project, you do those workshops and you have a sharing at the end of the week, and like, their families can come and see them. And that is great. Like, I've done so many projects like that in different places, and that is a wonderful part of the week. But what we're trying to do is maybe kind of step up from that a little and have a platform which has got that same informal, friendly, supportive atmosphere, but also is genuinely a public event with professional performers as well. Do you know what I mean? Because as a paying audience, I think I would enjoy coming to something where you get to see professionals as well as some much younger poets, like 10, 11-year-olds trying something as well. Do you know what I mean? If it's a carefully curated
Mix.
experience, audience a mix of those different voices and styles, then I think in a way I'd almost enjoy that more. It kind of punctuates those points of difference, do you know what I mean, will kind of keep you listening in different ways. And I think that it could be really exciting exchange, both for the audience and for the young people to have a chance to be in it. And another part of the project that we're doing is I've been running like a short kind of a series of workshops, a bit like a mentoring program for, this is with Apples and Snakes actually, where we advertised it and then a few people applied and we picked 6 adult poets like who had been writing and performing for grown-ups for a while, like, and we tried to pick with a range of voices and styles. And then I ran a little mini series of workshops for them to think about writing for children and families for the first time. So like that's been really exciting as well, to get a kind of early stage input and insight into the process of these 6 poets who are saying, do you know what I mean? Like it's not like they're different to me particularly in like the skill level and experience and stuff. They just haven't done much writing for children before. So that's been really, really exciting to think, oh wow. So then I got them to come along to one of the online workshops and try out the rough versions of the poems that they were working on with the group of young poets that come online so they could give them feedback. And yeah, the pro poets that came along were just absolutely blown away by the quality of feedback that these kids were giving to them. They were able to kind of, this, you know, like the kind of stuff that they were picking out and the level of considered nature of the feedback that they were giving them. Yeah, the guys just couldn't believe it, that they were only like, some of them are like 6, 7, 8. Do you know what I mean? They were absolutely blown away by it.
I suppose you can write poetry about just about anything.
I think well, one can write poetry about anything.
I mean, you've incorporated rap with it, haven't you? And
people say that any poem is a love poem because of the like amount of time that you have to spend thinking about a thing in order to write about it. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of think you've got to have a degree of enough interest in something. But a poem is more than words as well. Like I think a poem, you feel the meaning of a poem. You understand what it means, just like, yeah, I can understand what that means. But then there's a deeper way that you can connect with it. That's why it's a poem rather than an essay or a paragraph or something. Do you see what I mean? Like
it's almost like that sort of words turn into their own music, don't they?
Yeah, the sound of them, exactly, the shape, the feel of a word in a way that you can't quantify. Like, and that's why it's so important, the word choice that you have. Like, there's so few words, such a distilled communication of something that the actual sound. I quite often think like you used to say like you have like a rock and a stone, and it could be relatively interchangeable depending how specific you want to get. But would you say that a rock or a stone is bigger or sharper? Which do you think?
Gosh, well, it depends, doesn't it? I suppose you would say a rock is sharper, wouldn't you?
I think most people would say that, yes. And it may not be completely because of the sound of the words, but if you think like stone has got that kind of smooth O and then like the soft end, whereas a rock, it's the same O, but it's O. It's like a short and then K. Like it's that sharp ended sound of it. And there's not loads of examples where it's as clear as that, but I think it's an interesting way to illustrate how the actual sound and shape of a word might impact how you experience the sentence that is in as well, if that makes sense. And and you're not always conscious of doing that. I don't mean I'm saying to these 6-year-olds, they've got to like say every single word in the whole thing aloud and pick a different one that sounds better. I don't mean that. Sometimes it just comes out naturally, but you don't know why. You just get the sense that this arrangement of words might fit for this feeling versus this one, and that's the fun of it. Sometimes that's the pain of it as well. Do you know what I mean? It can be a long, difficult process sometimes finishing off poems, but I guess that's the same. But anything that is worth putting time and effort into, isn't it? Any kind of craft or.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, it's the same for, you know, for example, I mean, I'm, you know, my background is in news, putting a news piece together. It's it's quite to edit it, it's really quite a task. And then, you know, you think, oh, have I said, you know, is there enough cotton? And then it goes on, doesn't it? You know, and then you think,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
well,
sometimes once you get into it, you can be fairly happy with it and be like, yeah, it's done. But then once you go beyond a certain point, it's like a
yeah,
little wormhole of like, well, if we've changed that bit, then maybe we need to do this and that and this. Like, no, for sure.
yeah. It's quite funny because, you know, I mean, obviously I've never edited poetry, but editing, you know, people's interviews or things like that, as I said, news bulletins, it's, yeah, and you also become acutely aware that if you change, which is the same as poetry, if you change one word, you change the whole thing of it sometimes, you know, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
and yet at the beginning, when, like I was saying, like when there's not the editor and you're just coming up with it, you need to not really think about any of that stuff. Do you know what I mean? So much of it is just kind of coming out from anywhere, and then you start to look at it. I guess it just changes day to day as well. Do you know what I mean? There's like so many different variables about how you're feeling or what else has been going on as to how much you trust your instinct or question it. Do you know what I mean? I wonder, I'd be interested. There's no way you could ever test something like that, but if you had like the same news piece or the same poem at exactly the same start point and you came to edit it on different days, like what kind of version you'd come out with. Do you know what I mean? I just wonder. Like,
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I often think that, you know, it is a gift to be creative. It really, really is. But it's also can be quite trying at times, can't it? Because, you know, I guess, you know, you can change your mind and can
and
have
it
days
doesn't.
where you can't think as well, I guess.
Sure, mate, like it just doesn't go well, does it? Sometimes, and I think like even no matter how long you've been doing it, and you know that it doesn't matter necessarily, it hasn't gone well one time, like it still doesn't feel good, and you can be there like I don't know, sometimes I'm there in the evening trying to relax, you're watching telly or trying to read or something, and it's like niggling away a little bit. Do you know what I mean? You're just like, oh, I wish I'd just got that thing redrafted, or maybe I should have another look at it now. Like, and for me, I know after a certain point in the day, or particularly the evening, it's just not going to be worth going back to it. I'm gonna sit there for ages, like just kind of going loopy, staring at it, and not really make any significant change. Do you know what I mean? But I'm still getting that kind of gnawing sensation of like, oh, if I just had another little look, maybe I could just get finished. You know what I mean? Whereas on those days when you've just got into it straight away, you've found a bit of a flow, you've totally smashed it, like it's just the best feeling, which is weird. Like it makes it sound like I don't actually enjoy doing it. And to be honest, sometimes maybe I do enjoy having done it more than doing it. Do you know what I mean? But,
Yeah,
but
I do. I do. So you've got this coming up, this event on June the 6th. So is this sort of like the start now of many events like this, poetry picnics to come?
yeah, well, I'd hope so. Like there's probably going to be maybe like 4 or 5 over the summer at various places, either online or in person or mixed. You know, some of them we might have like a big screen up so the audience could zoom in as well. And it just depends really. Like I'm getting the sense people are a bit done with online unless there's a real reason for it being online as opposed to in person. Do you know what I mean? If you're genuinely increasing the quality of the experience or the access to that experience by making it online, then fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, Simon, it has been lovely to chat to you. Really, good luck with all of this. And yeah, so what after that, what will be your sort of next project, do you think?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure to be honest. Like I'm going to continue making some more tutorial videos. Like I make these kind of write a poem in 10-minute videos. I've got a few more of them kind of set up that I'm ready to make in the lead up to National Poetry Day. It seems like it's a long way off. That's going to be in October. Do you know what I mean? But I'll get a few of them made hopefully in the run up to that. There's quite a lot of them on my YouTube channel now, actually. So if anyone's listening thinking, oh, I'd love to do a bit of writing, even if it's not something you normally do, if you've got 10 minutes spare, if you just Google write a poem in 10 minutes or look from, I think it's youtube.com/Simon Mole. There's like loads of little activity videos that you can have a go at there. So like, yeah, I'm gonna make a few more of them. Just try and get some events to do with the book, to be honest, as well.
Well, Simon, as I said, lovely to meet you. Good luck with it all, and I hope the book does well. And yeah, I'll be watching out for you. So thanks for coming to tea time. Look forward to chatting with my next guest on the Tea Time sofa this time next Saturday. In the meantime, if you would love to get in touch about having a chat with me, you can reach me on teatime@forthenow.co.uk. Or you can find me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram on Tea Time with AM. Bye for now.